Hey guys, welcome to the show, 888-659-3727. Great to be here. Another Tuesday night doing the hair loss show. You are listening to and watching The Bald Truth. Phone number 888-659-3727 if you are new to the broadcast. Don't know who I am, why I am here. I'm a consumer advocate for men and women who unfortunately are suffering with hair loss. I am the author of a couple of very well-known books on the subject of the prevention and treatment of hair loss, first being The Bald Truth, and of course, The Truth About Women's Hair Loss. Also the founder of the American Hair Loss Association and, God, that's a lot, right? The founder of the International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons. Why we are here and why I do this show and why I've been doing this program for the past almost 18 years is because I'm a guy who started to lose his hair at the age of 21 and had no fucking clue what to do. I was completely lost. And you have to understand, back when I started losing my hair, I mean, I just turned 50 years old. We're talking about the dark ages of the hair loss industry. Sadly, things haven't changed all that much. I mean, we have state-of-the-art surgical hair restoration where, at least a handful of doctors out there who are performing hair transplantation are actually doing it to state-of-the-art standards where you can have a hair transplant and come away with a good experience, a vastly improved appearance. But sadly, finding a good hair transplant surgeon is not an easy task. And the hair loss industry itself, even though it's a $3.5 billion a year industry, it's still, 99% of all products being sold are complete bullshit. And now with the internet, while for a while things seemed to be getting better as there was a greater flow of information out there where people were able to share their experiences, where, at least initially, a lot of the sites that started to pop up about hair loss were really great platforms for people to interact and share honest experiences. The problem started to arise when a lot of the people in the industry, the snake oilers, the not-so-great surgeons, the guys who were selling, crazy gadgets and whatnot to treat your hair loss, they realized that these online resources were incredible places to solicit vulnerable hair loss sufferers. And that's what's happening each and every day. Sadly, it's getting worse. When you go online and you look up hair loss or hair transplantation or surgical hair restoration, yeah, you're going to find the American Hair Loss Association. You're going to find WebMD, which basically hosts a tremendous amount of content from the American Hair Loss Association. You're going to find the IHRS. You're going to find Bald Truth Talk. You're going to find the Bald Truth in our resources, but you're also going to find a lot of bullshit. And because we're out there kind of providing people with information that they may not like to hear, we're here to tell the truth. We're telling people that not every treatment out there is going to work for them, even the vetted FDA-approved treatments. Not everyone's a great candidate for a hair transplant. There are people out there that don't want to hear this, so they'll move on to the next site to buy some crap or to attempt buy some gray market product from some unknown source and slap it on their heads. This program is a place for you guys to not only vent about your hair loss, but to get what we consider to be completely objective information when it comes to anything and everything hair loss. As usual, our weekly on-air contributor, Joe Tillman, is joining us tonight. Let's say hi to Joe. Joe, how are you, man?
I'm good. How are you?
You know what? I'm not bad. I can't complain. No, that's my thing. And the thing is, it's funny. People always say they love when they meet me and they ask me how I am, and I say I can't complain. But what do I got to complain about? I got a little bit of a Trump, the early years comb over happening. That's
not enough to complain about.
Right. The same problems that everyone else has, maybe some other problems that other people don't have in life, but why am I going to complain? I wake up in the morning, I could see. I wake up with wood Yeah, I'm 50 years old. I'm still feeling pretty good in that department. I think I have my health. I mean, you never know what's really going on in your body.
You never know.
So I try to enjoy each and every day.
That's good.
And that's what I want these guys who are on the message forums, who are calling the program, who are really suffering with their hair loss, to know that there is life after hair loss, but you got to be careful out there. And I'm bringing up this topic because you are the guy that coined the phrase, at least in this industry, the dumbing down of the internet.
Yeah.
So I thought that might be a good topic to start the show off with tonight.
That is a fine topic, sir, and it actually kind of blends in with what I was thinking while you're doing your monologue of how the difference between back in the day and today, back in the day versus today, is that surgeons today are doing quote unquote state-of-the-art hair restoration. That's not why. That's not why we have such better scenarios for patients to have surgical hair restoration.
Explain.
It's because doctors have a better eye for what's natural.
That's true.
And I think that when you
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, when you combine it with state-of-the-art techniques, that's where you get your IHRS doctors as they exist today. And I say that because ever since Orange Strike, doctors have been saying it's state-of-the-art.
That's true.
And you can have Dr. X over here that's using the best punch for FUE or the best microscopes for dissecting with flick unit transplantation strip surgery, and it still looks like ass. It doesn't.
Exactly.
So
you're right about
that. Is that people need to beware of the fluff when clinics are saying, we use state-of-the-art techniques to give you the best result possible. That means nothing.
Well, you know what I mean? You're right. When these guys are advertising on their websites, when they are putting it in print in their brochures, when they're saying that they are doing techniques that are now scarless and all that shit and state of the art, it's true. It is nothing. I think that when we, and this, I hope this doesn't sound obnoxious, when we are letting people know that there are physicians out there who are truly performing state-of-the-art surgical hair restoration, or, it's funny. I just did an interview with Bob Bernstein, and I use the term surgical hair restoration because that's something that I've been speaking about this for almost 20 years. He doesn't like that term anymore because he's basically saying that, there were other procedures involved with surgical hair restoration back in the day. Now it's all hair transplantation. And the truth is, he's right. It is just, no one's getting, there are it's still happening here in LA. I know the guy's still doing flap surgery, but most people are not getting other forms of surgical hair restoration. It really is about hair transplantation. So when Bob said that, he kind of corrected me. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I should stop using the term surgical hair restoration.
Yeah, Bob's just being picky.
But what do you think about that? I think the term still is I think it's relevant. Apropos, it's relevant. It makes sense. Yeah. It's something that's palatable and people can understand because I want people to understand that this is surgery.
Yeah.
When you think of hair transplantation, it takes out the whole surgical equation if people don't really understand what they're getting involved in.
Well, I understand what you're saying. You have to utilize the word surgery at some point to remind people of what it is exactly they're doing. Because when you say hair restoration, this is the same angle that Dr. Bernstein is coming from. That could also be applied to wigs,
right?
Hair restoration,
yes.
or hair, hair restoration. So
that's why I use surgical hair restoration because this is surgery.
Yeah. And he thinks that's too broad of a term that encompasses everything that is now ancient history that's no longer really used, where we need to be more specific and say it's surgical hair transplantation.
Right.
Okay. No,
Well, he just says hair transplantation. And I get his point. Point. But sadly, there are still guys out there. There's still cosmetic surgeons here in Los Angeles that are performing the Fleming-Mayer flap. And that includes Fleming and Mayer. So these things are still being done to this day.
They are rare, but it's happening. I I get it. I just think it's kind of pushing a little too hard for,
Well, whatever. I was
is.
just curious, and I kind of went off on a tangent. And
Hey, that's okay.
but that's the thing is, we are in a very weird space, in my view, as far as educating patients in this arena.
And back to the point, the dumbing down of the internet. It is, it's something that is. I still think about this probably every few days about how amazingly silly this whole industry is with the way that every clinic between here and the other side of the planet has figured out that the internet is this gold mine of opportunity.
Yes.
And the industry itself has been very slow to adapt to the internet, but there have been a few people that were out front. Me being one of them, you being one of them, the clinic I worked for in the past being one of them for recognizing the opportunities. But
it's one thing to recognize the opportunities. And guys, guys who are holding on, please hold on. I will take your calls in a second. I just want to make this point. But it's one thing to recognize the opportunity. It's another thing to exploit it in ways that, I believe are just pandering to vulnerable hair loss sufferers.
That's what I was getting to. Yeah.
Yeah. The guys that are ultra involved in what I believe is not a constructive way. Just trying to kind of remain relevant, kind of create, an incendiary situation online just to kind of create views. That's fucked up, man.
Yeah, that's where you get what I call the soap opera effect.
Right,
where you create this soap opera of false drama, and it's false drama because it's cooked. It's not real. It's something that was started just for the sake of stirring the shit.
It's contrived.
That's all
Before they go online, they're speaking to their people saying, okay, this is how we're going to...
How can we get some views?
We're going to compose this, and we're going to orchestrate this.
Let's say something just completely out there, just wacky.
Right.
just to get attention. And that's apparently what some people do.
Guys, let me know. I'm trying to make sure that our levels are a little closer than they were last week, volume-wise. They look okay on the board. Let me know if there's any issues in the chat room. I'm just curious to see if we are basically at the same level. You sound good, Joe. I just wanted to make sure.
You sound good too, Spencer.
Well, thank you. Let me give out the phone number, 888-659-3727. It's funny. As soon as I said I was going to take their calls, they hung up. Now,
either that or the phone system just died.
No. Well, that's very possible. Let's see. No, it's working.
It's on.
Guys, so call back, 888-659-3727. I think some of these guys get stage fright. Or I think there are some guys out there who are like, I'm going to call that fucking Joe and Spencer, and I'm going to give them a piece of my mind. And then as soon as they have the opportunity,
oh, shit,
they're cut off.
Yeah.
And
that's okay.
No. Yeah, it's fine. I welcome those calls. But there's no doubt that the confusion is... it's, I want to mention something. You posted our last video on probably the only message forum that I'm aware of, at least English language message forum, that really kind of plays by, I think, honest rules, and that really, has created a really nice environment for hair loss sufferers and hair transplant potential patients to kind of interact, and that's Hair Loss Experiences.
Yeah.
And you get a really good response from that. People are really, the owner actually came out and said something really nice. That is so unusual in this fucking business.
It's very unusual.
So I want to give him, I don't know if he wants his name out there, but he's known as Big Mac on his forum. And I want to give him his props and also let people know who are in the UK and Europe that, yeah, listen, we'd love you to come to Bald Truth Talk, but there are other, honest resources. Now, all these resources have their problems, including mine. You're always going to find your nut jobs on all of them to some degree. There's only so much you can control. But, I think that Big Mac really runs a great forum. There's a lot of, I think, really insightful posters who really take a lot of time. And I would say that it's a feather in his cap that you take the time to post on his forum as well.
Well, I think it's a worthwhile forum. And what I like about him and his forum. First off, I've met the guy. I've met Big Mac I've probably met. Well, I first met him in 2013 at the San Francisco conference because he came to San Francisco for that, the ISHRS conference. Excuse me, and he's just a hell of a nice guy. Just really, really easy to speak to, upfront, honest, or he seems to be honest. And ever since I've dealt with him, or ever since I met him at that one conference 2 years ago now, every interaction I've had with him has been fantastic. I mean, he's helpful. He doesn't try to twist anything or BS you on anything.
I gotta say, the guy is a stand-up dude.
He is. He's a stand-up dude, and he has he's stepped up and he's done the right thing when situations have called for doing the right or wrong thing. And yeah, I think he just runs a good forum, and it's definitely worth people to visit. That's why I'm participating on his forum. I think it's worthwhile.
I think most people in this industry, especially guys who own forums, they don't want to cross promote each other. They don't want. To me, I honestly believe this. It should be all for one and one for all if people are helping out. If there are people out there really helping people and doing the right thing, who gives a shit? Why shouldn't people have more resources to go to? You know, I'm all for it.
Well, look, back in the day, and you remember this as just as well as I do, that it was a free for all as far as the different forums fighting amongst each other over this bullshit story versus this bullshit story. It all meant nothing in the end.
It's insane, actually.
It's absolutely insane, and it still happens behind the scenes sometimes. But it's nothing now like it was, and I think that's one of the great things about how the market has, or the online market has evolved, is that the Wild West has kind of settled down a little bit.
Well, I'm gonna have to take credit for that to some degree.
Well, I wish you would.
And I'm going to, because I will tell you, I did not want to be in the forum world. At one point, at the very beginning of my career, I had a forum. It was getting nuts, and I just decided, you know what, this is just too much work. I decided to allow someone else to use my site to launch their forum, which they did, and they became successful. Mm-hmm. And then we kind of parted ways. And until Bald Truth Talk came out in 2009, that was the height of the free-for-all. That's when all of the insanity was really happening between these forums and these insane forum wars, which I could never understand. Understand. So I really wanted to make Bald Truth Talk a safe place where none of that shit could happen. And yes, some stuff slipped through the cracks. For a while there, we were allowing people to kind of, voice their opinions about things because that's the way the forums worked. And then we just decided, you know what? Enough is enough. I don't care who the person is. I don't care if he considers considers me his worst enemy. I will not allow my moderators to allow anything that is going to try to, potentially damage somebody's reputation, even if I despise the person.
Right.
It's just, if it's not validated, if it's not real, if it's just something that's hearsay, just can't allow it. And I think that changed things.
Because, if you allow things that are slanderous, first off, you don't want to be supporting that kind of behavior to begin with. But what kind of position does that put you in?
Well, it actually doesn't put us in any position because we are protected by the Communications Decency Act. So, anyone who posts anything on our forum owners aren't responsible. Unfortunately, forum owners use that to their advantage. They use that to advantage to, in my view, in some cases, to extort people, to bully people in the industry, to try to destroy other people's reputation, shit like that. Just because we are not legally responsible for what someone posts on our forum doesn't mean that we are going to allow it to happen.
Well, I wasn't talking about the legal ramifications. I was just talking about the rock and a hard place scenario that you wind up being put in because of what other people say that go on online, and it's like, who wants to deal with that? I
would say it's more difficult to have a controlled environment than it is not to have a controlled environment, because when you have a controlled environment, the people who believe there shouldn't be any control in that environment, the guys who are out there trying to harm other people. The doctors who are out there who, have no self-control. The doctors who are out there who are trying to harm their their next door neighbor, colleague, or competition.
Right.
They're the ones that have the problems with it. And then all of a sudden you see negative stuff posted about you on other forums and shit like that. See, we always kind of felt that, it's got to be a certain way across the board. If someone makes a complaint about a doctor at Bosley Medical, for instance, a large chain clinic that we do, a company we do not recommend in any way, shape, or form. We have no financial ties with them. They have to follow the same rules as someone who complains about an IHRS member.
Right.
That's it. Complaint has to be verified. If the complaint is verified, it stays online. Terrific. It's never disappeared. It's never archived, so to speak. It's always visible and indexable. However, It's not allowed to be, a pylon. That's it. You make a complaint. Doctor has the opportunity to come back and if they want to, explain give their side of the story. Obviously, everything has to be done within HIPAA laws, and that's it. But to allow stuff to be, people's reputation, or even a patient, if a poor patient puts up his pictures, and then all of a sudden this guy signed off on these images, and all of a sudden there's 100 guys saying that work is shitty. How is that patient feeling? Like, these guys don't give a shit about these guys. We're supposed to be, we're all in this together. They're supposed to be, supporting their brother hair loss sufferers, their brethren. I don't get it.
Expecting support? What? This is, I don't see how you can even expect that.
It's amazing what you see going down. But you are right. And again, I'm not taking all the credit. I think that by creating a competitive environment that was safer, in my view, for consumers, that kind of helped to guide some of the other guys, and they probably realized, hey, you know what? We can't allow some of this shit to happen either.
Right. Well, I think that there's also the fact that a lot of guys just got kind of tired of dealing with it, dealing with the BS, and helping to, setting an example. They see, how things can work out. Then, I can see how that would kind of spread and permeate into other environments. But the bottom line is, it's better now than it has been on one level, but it's worse now than it has been on a different level. And worse because, like we were saying before, with the way that some clinics have found ways to pander to the less educated that haven't been around for forever, like you and I have, where we can see immediately when there's some sort of BS going on. But the new people coming on board, which are plentiful every day. What's the stat, Spencer? How many new people discovering they are experiencing
It's
hair
about
loss?
200,000 guys.
Yeah.
Every day
Every day.
in North America.
Yeah.
Are realizing for the first time they're losing their hair. That's just men. So think about that. 200,000 men every morning are waking up and they're like, what the fuck? They may have been in denial for a while, but they finally realize this is really happening to me.
Wall Street is salivating over that kind of market potential.
Oh,
right?
Of course.
I mean, it's 200,000 new potential customers every day, right? So, that's the thing is a lot of those guys are going online to places like Bald Truth Talk and looking for information about their newly discovered predicament, and they're getting suckered in left and right.
Well, but here's the other problem that I see. There are guys out there, there are, keyboard cowboys, we talk about them all the time, who have certain agendas or beliefs or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
And in my view, they're also harming people. They're guiding people in a very bizarrely skewed direction and causing a lot of, it's one thing to warn people about the reality of what can happen with surgical hair restoration. It's one thing to say, you know what? Even if you go to the best fucking doctor, you can be fucked up.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if this is surgery. This is for real. But to guide people down certain paths that really are dangerous. They're possibly dangerous. They can be, people have economic, constraints that, and time constraints that don't allow them to do things the way certain people are telling them to give hair transplants a try. And I think you know what I'm talking about. I just see a lot of dangerous misinformation out there, and just a lot of just bizarre innuendo that I think is harmful. I really do.
Well, I look at it like this: if you can't come out and just say what you mean when it comes to giving advice, instead of like, okay, here's a classic. Hi everyone, I'm new. I've got questions. I'd like to learn more. Can you point me in the right direction on how I can understand my current situation and what my options are? And and someone comes out and says, spend 10 years reading the forums.
Right. Yeah.
Eureka!
Yeah.
Why didn't I think of that? Holy shit! That's just wow. It's so simple. Okay,
Right.
thanks. Bye.
Yeah.
It's just. I mean, it's silly stuff like that we laugh about it because it is silly and it's funny and all this, but at the same time, it's actually causing more harm than good. And here's why. That guy that was just told to read a forum for 10 years and watch how people behave, they're not doing that.
Right. No.
They're leaving. They're like, okay, great, thanks, great advice, bye.
Right. I'm going to $2 graft guy down on Ventura Boulevard because I want to get my hair back.
I work at Costco and I make my X number of dollars per hour, and I got a family of 2 kids and a mortgage and a car payment, and give me the best deal and tell me why that's not such a great idea.
Exactly.
That's what this comes down to, right?
Right.
And so. If anyone is watching this that has these kinds of questions, the answer is simple. Read the forums, read Ball Truth Talk, go visit clinics, meet patients, talk to people, and look for consistency in the results of the doctors or clinics that you're choosing.
That's it. And also understand the entire scope and all the possible pitfalls of whatever surgery you decide to have.
Yeah. It comes down to, it's a very simple formula of what you need to be aware of. There are very few overall in the grand scheme of things, clinics that do good work across the board.
Right.
And IHRS has done a fantastic job of corralling a lot of these doctors into a list that's easily searchable. And you find these doctors, you talk to them, and you use your own gut instinct to see if you think they're on the up and up. Don't go to a doctor just because he's a nice guy, because the nicest guy in the world could be the biggest hack or the biggest asshole.
And I'm the first one to say, don't go to a doctor just because they're in the IHRS.
Exactly.
It is a starting point. It is a place where we created this, and I created a list of physicians in the Ball Truth that. It set the industry on its ear. They were they were incensed about that.
Yeah.
And these guys didn't pay me to be on that list. These were doctors who were doing, at the time, the only 11 doctors who were actually performing follicular unit transplantation using microscopic dissection, which seemed to make sense, but no one else was doing it. Yeah. In the entire ISHRS, in the entire industry, these are the only 11 guys who converted their practices over. So those were the guys that I put on that list. Those were the original guys in the IHRS as well. Yeah. And that's how it all evolved. So, you're right. As far as, you got to do your own due diligence, but you got to start someplace. You got to find some sort of, work within some sort of parameters. And I have to tell you, this is, and this, I've shown you applications. We get an insane amount of applications every month. Right. If I would just take half of those doctors, we would still appear to be selective. And the money would be insane. So for anyone out there who thinks that, guys who do the type of work we do are just doing it to make a living, you're out of your mind. because it's so easy to make a living in this industry.
I've been doing what I've been doing in my current status since April.
Yeah.
And I've already had opportunities where doctors are coming to me saying, "Can you work with us? Can you, all this stuff?"
You talked about this one. I'm not going to say what it is specifically, but there's one huge opportunity that I can tell you this: no one on the fucking forums would turn it down.
Right.
No one. Not even not even some of the holier than thou guys. And you did.
I walked away.
Yeah.
I had to, because I have to be able to sleep at night. I have to be able to say that what I'm doing actually has some sort of substance to it.
But
right?
You do that, and that's the reason I do it as well. However, I've also learned this, and this is something that I said from the beginning of my career. There is a hell of a lot more money to be made in good medicine in the long run than there is in bad medicine. So if you can hold off and not be overwhelmed by what's being offered to you at the beginning of your career. Like when I was offered $3,000 for each personal endorsement that I would give a certain chain clinic on my radio show, and they wanted 2 endorsements per market per week. That's $60,000 a week just to give a thumbs up to a company, and no one would have known the fucking difference.
Yeah.
I didn't do it because I knew in the end I would have had a much shorter-lived career. I would have made a hell of a lot of money very quickly at a young age, like 31 years old or 30, whatever, 30 or 31. But I made that choice knowing that not only do I have to sleep at night, but it would be a bad business decision for what I'm trying to accomplish.
Right.
So it wasn't 100% altruistic. It was, I just did the right thing, for the consumer, but also for myself.
Call it strategy,
right?
Because that's what it comes down to. But back to the simple formula that I was talking about is to remember a few key facts about surgical hair restoration. Sorry, Dr. Burpstein. Surgical hair restoration is that it doesn't matter who you go to. It doesn't matter if they have 200 videos on YouTube in HD. It doesn't matter if they have 500 photos in their gallery. There are guys walking around that have been to that clinic that are fucked up, that are absolutely fucked up.
Yeah.
You don't hear about them. You don't see them. Every once in a while, one might surface. But every one of them, of the clinics that you're thinking of, Mr. Potential Consumer, Patient, they all have fuck-ups.
Oh, yeah.
I guarantee it, and you can't forget that. So there's always a chance that you will be the next one. And so that is what you have to always keep in mind. Never forget, this is surgery. It is elective. I tell people not to have surgery unless it's an absolute last result. I know that, or last resort. I know that you do too.
Sure.
That's always been one of the things that we've always agreed upon since we've known each other. But that's what you need to understand. Anyone can screw up. Everyone does screw up, and you might be the next one. So never forget that when you're looking at the clinic of your choice or the doctor of your choice. That when they are saying yes, we can do a great job on you, what they really mean is yes, we can do a great job on you, but we might screw it up.
Right, and we hope to do a great job on you. We're going to do everything in our power to do a great job on you.
Of course,
but it's very possible that it's not going to work out. And of course, and that's it's not a great selling point, but that is the truth with any form of cosmetic surgery.
Yeah.
And I also think it's important for the guys who read the forums and may read something negative about someone who, in general, has a consistently great track record to realize, okay, one of his fuck-ups is happened to go online.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's a crazy pylon instead of. And I do believe that the reasonable people, the rational people will say, okay, out of, how many surgeries does this guy perform a month? How many patients are out there complaining?
Yeah.
If all of a sudden you see, 200 complaints, online about one doctor, then that's it's good. It's pretty, you're going to be consistently fucked.
Yeah.
There's a good chance something's not going to go right. But if you have a guy who has been around for a while, who has been, performing, hitting it out of the park 7 out of 10 times. And then the rest is, just, good work, but maybe not home runs. And then a
Right.
couple of guys have had infections or necrosis or things that happen during surgery. What are you going to do? People have to realize that this is just
Yeah.
the reality of it.
Yeah. You got to deal with the cards you're dealt.
If you can't understand those risks, you shouldn't have surgery. As desperate as everybody is to get their hair back, people ask me all the time. And I get critiqued about it. Why haven't I had surgery? Why do I continue to paint my bald spot? Because I know that there's a possibility that I will be unhappy with it. And right now, I am not unhappy. I'm very fulfilled in my life. Spending a few extra minutes a day painting my head is not the end of the world. Does it restrict me in some ways? Yeah, I don't love going to pool parties because of it and things like that. Or, sometimes I have an issue at the dentist office, whatever. But it doesn't really cause me that much anxiety. And it's something that because I do what I do and I could explain it to people, I kind of let them know in advance. If you see like an oil slick in the pool, you'll know it's because it's coming off my head.
Kobren's in the pool.
Kobren's in the pool. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. And I just want people out there to understand the guys that are out there who are, who may have had bad experiences or who are reading about bad experiences or reading stuff on forums from people who had bad experiences 20 years ago. There's a lot of good happening. You look at a guy like Joe Tillman, and that's why I think his perspective is so important. While he was harmed initially, he ended up being helped. And now he has a life that I think at one point you probably could never have dreamt that you would have.
No, I did not go through high school thinking I'm going to be a professional in the hair restoration industry. That was not in my plans.
Well, besides that, yeah, like this is the sexiest job in the world. But but besides that, the fact that you were botched, you had lost
twice.
trust. You had lost trust in the process, and you were convinced by someone to give it another shot. And by giving it that shot, your life was changed.
I was convinced because of an MHR infomercial. I was convinced because I was freshly divorced, and I knew that I had to get back out on the stage,
Yeah,
and perform, and I couldn't do it in Seattle, Washington, with
right.
this mess that was on my head.
Right.
It wasn't going to happen. Actually, some things did happen. I did get some action before I got fixed up, and that was nice. But
there's always probably a lot of heavy drinking involved. I'm just kidding.
Ether rags. I don't know. What? This thing on? Anyway, so no, but in all seriousness, it was something that I realized I had to get fixed. It was right when just right there at the cusp when FUE was first being talked about. This crazy guy down in Oz putting this new system together called FUE, and I hadn't heard of it right when I had my surgery, but it was in that same time frame, a matter of weeks, months at most.
2001, 2002.
Yeah. It was. I had mine March 18th, 2002, so it was right there at the cusp. And had I known about it, had it been matured a little bit, I wouldn't be here today because I would have had those old grafts removed. I would have become a head shaver, and today I would have just had S&P in my donor scars.
Right.
And I'd be a head shaver.
Yeah.
And happy to do it because I got a good head shape for it, and I always liked having the shaved look to begin with. It just wasn't fashionable.
Right.
But yeah, so it was just a few little tiny things that pushed me and maneuvered me into the path that I wound up taking, which at this point I wouldn't change for anything, because I think that it is really exposed to me the underbelly of human nature.
Oh, yes. It certainly has.
I never would have imagined that people can be so nasty and ugly and just dark in any industry, but and I'm not glad I see it or I've seen it, but I am glad because it's just taught me a lot more about life. I think that if you can survive in this industry,
oh shit,
and keep the straight and narrow going as far as ethics and being able to sleep at night, then you've come out a better person.
Look, here's the thing. From both ends of the spectrum, from the inside track of what's happening in the industry, from what we know about certain physicians and clinics and the way things operate, and to some of the let's say less than happy members of many of these forums, you just have to kind of remain unfazed. You have to just focus on what you are doing. And if you're
Right.
focusing on what you're doing and you're doing a good job at it, then, you're going to be affected by certain things. Like, believe me, I hate to see when patients are mistreated or when I have attempted, and I've usually been successful getting refunds for patients, and you've known that I've done it for a couple of patients that you've sent my way.
Yeah.
And I've gotten in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, with no exaggeration, in refunds over the years. I have flown people out on my dime to get repair surgeries and all kinds of things. Being able to be in a position to do that is what I focus on. I focus on all the good that we're able to do. And you've done similar things in the past. So you kind of have to say, okay, the industry's fucked up. We do our best to provide the best information so people are able to navigate this as safely as possible. And then you have detractors that you have to deal with as well. To me, sometimes the detractors are your biggest friends because they're out there basically promoting what you do.
Pretty much. Yeah, it's free advertising.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. But ultimately, again, back to the basics. You don't have to read forums for 10 years to figure out what's going on, because no one wants to become a student of human behavior just to get their hair restored. I think that's ridiculous, and it's a waste of time. However, you keep in mind the basics of the industry, basics of surgery in general, and understand that, yes, there are people out there that want to take your money, knowing full well that you won't get a good result.
Right.
But those guys, are filtered out by public opinion. They're filtered out by IAHRS. You do a good job of screening doctors and having a basis or a baseline for ethics. But ultimately, it just comes down to looking for consistency in results, understanding that no one bats 1,000, no one bats 1,000. Everyone screws up, and you don't need to look at people that go online and preach for 5 days about the things that you need to look for. It's like, no, it's such a waste of time. You don't need to go and get a test session of 30 grafts on your Norwood 6 slick bald scalp to see if something's going to work well. That is that's one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard.
I would
of.
say that's actually some of the worst advice you can possibly give somebody. Because
Exactly.
The thing is, in especially smaller cases, there's a very good chance that it's going to be a successful case if you're going to do 30 grafts. It doesn't mean that when you decide after that 30 grafts that the 1,000 grafts you're going to get, you're going to have the full result that you got from those 30 grafts.
Exactly.
So even taking that time and wasting that time, the energy and the emotional roller coaster of just going in there and having something done, spending the money, even though it's not going to be a hell of a lot of money, waiting 6 months to a year to see if the results are fine, and then going for surgery, that's an insane notion. It's like that's a year of your life. You either choose to have a hair transplant or you don't. That's how I feel about it.
That's exactly right. It doesn't mean that you have to kick in and have 6,000 grafts in one shot.
No.
I actually advise against that type of surgery.
I agree with you. Yeah.
But it's like going in and having a stent placed in cardiac surgery as opposed to actually having a heart transplant.
Yeah.
It's the same difference. You don't know what the final outcome is going to be just because you had some minor surgery compared to the whole enchilada. It doesn't apply.
No, it doesn't. It's actually it's actually it's really an illogical way of kind of going down the path of surgery. To me,
I could do 30 graphs on you.
Yeah.
And it would grow.
Yeah.
And it would angles and direction. I know enough about it to where it would be fine.
Sure.
But does someone want to come to me and get 3,000 graphs? I sure as hell hope not. No.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, there's a lot of
Rant over.
No, and listen, but no, I want to talk about this tonight because I just think that's, and again, you coined the phrase, the dumbing down of the internet. I believe that it's getting worse.
It is.
It is getting worse. And I think the forum world in general is a very dangerous place. And we try to run the safest forum on the internet, at least as far as, the hair loss world is concerned. But it's still tough. You have to take things you read from anonymous posters with a grain of salt. You have to understand that unless you understand, know the source, it's very difficult to even take the thought process or whatever content they're putting out there seriously. If someone puts their name on it, that's a different story. But if someone is unwilling to put their name on it, then how can you trust that resource?
That's another thing. It's like when you think about this, and I can't really say too much about it simply because I was in this position as well. But when you think about it, if you were to go to someone and say, hey, I got a great idea for your next surgery, go to this website and ask a question about the surgery, and you'll get all these responses from people that have names like, ball juggler.
When I think about this,
and they're going to give you advice on what surgery to get.
Yeah.
On your head.
Yeah.
To get cut.
Yeah. To
have fun.
To go and have cosmetic surgery. You're going to be listening to people with I read the site today. There's a guy calls himself, I didn't want to say who it is, but I mean, basically it's a penis reference, Yeah. And it's like, this guy's giving advice and people are they're responding, they're taking it. And the sad thing is the younger guys look at this and, this is kind of like the world they grew up in. So they're used to interacting anonymously online. It's a fucking mess, man.
What I don't get though, I had my own alias, Joetronic, but my name was always out there.
Yes.
My face was always out there.
Right.
Even before I worked for clinics.
You were a real person. Yeah.
People knew my name was Joe. People knew I lived in Seattle. Here's my full face. From the very beginning.
Yeah.
I was not really anonymous. And so even back then, I say I was kind of guilty of it myself, but not really.
No, you weren't. You just happened to use a handle like everybody uses on the internet.
Yeah, exactly. But to continue my point, it's like if you go to that person and say, all right, so go to this website that you've never heard of before, ask a question about cosmetic surgery, and you get all kinds of people responding, like this guy named Ball Juggler 24 or whatever.
Right.
And and then you say to them, do you think that's a good idea on how to plan your own surgery?
Yeah.
They're going to laugh in your face.
Yeah.
Because it is an asinine notion to think that that's a legitimate way of doing research.
Yeah, Nervous Marvin is recommending FUE in Detroit,
Shaky hand Nelly.
Yeah.
It's like, I just, when you think about it, it is absolutely silly.
It is silly. It's actually a when I was asked to put up the form, and the story. I mean, a group of doctors came to me and like, listen, we need to have a place where patients can be safe and where it's not going to be all this insanity is going to be that then ensues is going to maybe you can help to control that and all that stuff. And I felt, maybe we can do this. Maybe we could create a safer place. I truly believe Bald Truth Talk is a safer place. But I am not ashamed to say that the entire internet is fucked up. And just because I run this forum, or I don't run it, I own the forum, doesn't mean there's not going to be something or somebody that's going to, try to pull some shit on it. We try to control it. But that's the nature of the internet, So there are forum owners out there that will not admit that, hey, they're doing everything on the up and up and everything is right. You know what? That's impossible. No matter, you could have 20 moderators. Some shit's going to get through.
Yeah.
Some nonsense is going to get through. And it happens. That's the way that it is. So no, and before we're going to take a break and then we'll take some calls. 888-659-3727. But when you're online, you're getting your information, even on Bald Truth Talk, know the source. At the very least, you could reference that source. You know, someone who puts their name out there, they're not going to guide you in a direction that they truly believe, at least in my opinion, that is going to harm you because they're putting their name on that. They're doing their best to provide, you know, what they consider to be legitimate information. Now, you got doctors out there who are making all sorts of claims, but some of these doctors believe in what they're saying. At the very least, they're putting their name. They have the courage of their conviction to put themselves out there.
That alone doesn't mean that it's.
That's right. That's accurate.
Yeah, that it's accurate.
Right.
It's just you know that they at least on some level believe what they're saying.
Exactly.
And then it's up to you to decide, you know, reference everything else to see if it kind of pans out. But that's a whole other story.
And again, there are doctors out there who, like I said, they'll go out there. Their names are out there. They're pander to. I would consider it pandering to vulnerable hair loss sufferers. And you know, I always have an issue. I like when doctors come online and they answer questions in a very professional way.
Yeah.
You know, who's been pretty active lately on our site is Dr. Paul Shapiro. Doing his best to answer questions. Dr. Rashid, you know, really out there, just, you know, doing their thing, and they're not trying to sell you on anything. They're not saying I'm doing something better than the rest, and they're just answering the question as straightforward as possible.
I get the feeling that Dr. Rashid is one of these hair nerds.
He is.
I get that impression, which is
he's a really good guy, and he's a good doctor, and he's a conservative doctor. You know, I mean, he's, you know, it's funny. If you saw the last interview with Bob Bernstein, and
appropriate.
He joked around. He prefers the word appropriate, and you know what? He's right, and it is appropriate. You know, I believe that it's
appropriately conservative.
Yeah, but I believe what Bob does and the way he treats his patients is it's 100% appropriate. Yeah. And Rashid is the same way. You know, he may only do 2,000 graft cases on average, you know, or in some cases smaller cases. But you know what? People aren't complaining about his work online. No one's coming out and saying, I have this huge, you know, gash, you know, across my head, or my grafts aren't growing, or they're happy with the work.
Right.
You know, and they can always go in and get more. So anyway, I don't think conservative is necessarily a bad thing. So I don't think Dr. Bernstein should see that as an insult. I think he should see that as a compliment.
I agree.
Anyway, guys, 888-659-3727. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, hopefully we'll take your calls. We are here live. I'm in Los Angeles. Joe Tillman, of course, is in Vancouver, British Columbia. Looking sharp, like you're in the room next door, by the way.
Maybe I am.
You might be. Which is pretty awesome.
You hear that?
No, I don't.
Oh, wait.
Wait. Yeah, I think I do.
High five. Wait. Right. High five.
Oh, this way.
There. Okay, sorry, guys.
All right, guys, listen, we're going to take a break. 888-659-3727. You have any questions, concerns about your hair loss? If you want to talk about the message forums, if you are a regular guy, a regular poster on the message forums who might disagree with our assessment of what's going on, call us. Please. We want to hear from you. 888-659-3727. I'm Spencer Kobren here with Joe Tillman. We'll be right back after this.
He's an international best-selling author, a contributing editor for Consumer Digest magazine, and the host of the longest-running reality radio show for men. I'd say he's the man.
The truth shall set you free!
It's Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth.